Here we are in season 4, Stand-Up Memories. Don't start. I am Peter Bales.
I really thought you were going to have something special to start the new season. So since you don't, I do.
Okay, I want to
I
hear
know
it.
that this won't air for a long time, but today, the trailer to the documentary Joke Man was dropped on comingsoon.com. And we have a release date of July 18th, which might be in the past by the time this airs. But I'm very, very excited. And it seems like there's actually some excitement throughout my block. But that is my big news. That's how you start a show.
That's how you start a show,
That's
with
how
a
you start.
plug. For
Are you
your-
ever going to introduce the guest? You know we have a guest.
We have a guest. I haven't introduced you or me yet. Peter Bales, Jackie the Joke Man Martling, and what a great guest we have today.
You don't have to say that. I'm good, but I don't know.
You're not a guest. We're co-hosts.
That was such a stupid. That was even stupid for me to say.
Yeah, it was. We have a terrific comedian who's been around as long as we have, a great friend.
The problem with this guy, well, first of all, when I first heard that I was going to meet Bill McCarty, I couldn't wait to meet Paul McCartney's brother, and then I found out.
Bill McCarty.
Yeah, and that.
Bill McCarty is
So
here.
right away he broke his leg before I met him. But we go back so far with him that it's going to be impossible to talk to him because all the stories are not really repeatable on the air or are so inside they shouldn't be repeated on the air. But I don't care. And there's one particular story that I have gone back and forth about 15 times just since the car. But knowing me, I'm probably going to tell it anyway. And he's probably worried I'm going to tell it anyway.
Well, we could start.
Why don't you introduce him?
Ladies and gentlemen, Bill McCarty. Thank you for being here, Bill.
Thank you for asking me. The first episode of the 4th season, I am honored.
Is this the first episode? No,
No.
it's not
Oh,
the
it's not. I
first
thought you said it
episode.
was
It's
the
Well,
one
you
of the-
made it sound like it.
This is
Welcome to season 4.
Yeah, season
welcome to
4.
season 4. It's,
You look.
sounded
You
weird.
look like the last time I saw you. Not that you look good then.
No.
But no, you have not aged. You look fantastic.
He does.
He wouldn't shake my hand. Maybe that's why.
That's because he is doing his impression of Howie Mandel.
There you go.
He doesn't want to get sick. He doesn't want to get colds.
And I got to say, I've seen your show. I love the studio. It's kind of a combination comedy club panic room. It's a very nice.
Thank you.
Whatever you would call it. But
Thing
we
you
know
have here.
Bill going back to the comic strip.
And I want to say the name of this place first on this podcast today. Mustache Pete's. Let's start our jump-off point with Mustache Pete's.
Pete's.
You
which
know how
was-
far back that goes? For me, there was a place called the Rainy Night House in Queens.
Sure.
Where we all worked. It was kind of a variety show. Vic had but it became more and more just comedians.
Now,
And-
Mustache Pete's is a comedy club in New Jersey.
Right.
The Rainy Night House was a comedy club in Queens.
On Union Turnpike in Queens, and
The owner was also the cook,
he
and his name was Vic.
and he was the greatest character. And that was my first. That was in January of '79. I call that my start date in comedy because they actually handed me $20. But instead of playing guitar and telling jokes, I was telling jokes and playing guitar, and it was so exciting. And there's great stories that came out of that. Of course, that was in days when you'd be doing so bad, so the other guys would send up notes like, "Hey, you got the smallest penis in showbiz," and.
Well, I think you're probably the only one who got that note.
So I Xeroxed and gave it to everybody, but
We've
that
gone
was
to the
with
dick jokes this early
This
in the show.
early in
I'm
the
we don't
show.
very
wait for
impressed.
nothing. So Ron Richards, who was a comic, very funny comic back then, he used to do what I did, was take an amplifier and go to bars and put on shows and invite the comics and make some money as a producer. And he had too many gigs, and he said, "I have this place in New Jersey. Would you like to take it over?" And it was called Mustache Pete's in Haskell, New Jersey. And I still have, I Xeroxed scanned the pages from Ron's book. We actually see Ron's handwriting segue into my handwriting, and the names, McCarty, Bales, Murphy, Seinfeld, Overton.
Reiser.
It's like it's like a blast from the past, and that might even been. I don't know if I met you. I know you guys knew each other, but I don't know where specifically.
We knew each other. We started out the comic strip on 2nd Avenue in Manhattan.
Yep.
And a lot of new comics and a lot of people who want to be comedians and are thinking of trying it out need to know that you can get an amp and you can get a mic and you can find a place and you can
And people are
get
doing that
stage
more.
time.
I'm hearing about more and more of these things.
More
are
and more
popping
people
up.
are doing it. They're popping up all over the place.
But now they have to bring the audience with them. Now I think they're expected to show up with like 10.
I don't
15
know
or
about
20
you,
people.
but one of the heartbreaking things in the course of being in comedy was the first time I heard it's a bringer show. And I said,
Right.
what's a bringer show? That means you got to bring 10
You
people
gotta-
with
you
you,
have to bring
and
the
then you
audience.
get to go on stage. I'm
Right.
like, somewhere along the line, things got switched around. That's not, why don't
Things
you
got
just put the
switched
audience on stage and sit and,
But you don't have to be a bringer if you're the one with the amp and the mic and you found the bar that's going to
If
have
it's
a
your
show.
football,
If it's your
you get to
football,
start.
You get to start.
Well, back in the day, if you had the car,
And
then
a
you could
car
work.
was very,
a
very
car would
important.
help you.
I had the car and the amp, so I was sitting
You were-
pretty.
You were king of the hill.
I was kidding.
Now, for those of you watching who are new comics or thinking about going into comedy, I tell
Don't look for Mustache Pete's. It's not there anymore.
Yeah, anything we're talking about is long gone, probably.
Jesus.
yes. Now, I tell new comics to stay away from religious material because I was at Mustache Pete's. Mr. Bill McCarty was
That's
on
right.
stage. He did a joke about his Catholic school upbringing.
That's right.
And a glass flew out of the
Flew through
audience
the air.
and missed him by a foot and broke against the back wall.
Yeah.
What is your memory of that?
This was my version of Altamont. I mean,
Jeez. Now, I'm sure I booked that, but I don't. I'm sure I wasn't there
I
because I would remember that.
I
oh, yeah,
remember it.
I had a lot of my early stuff was Catholic school /
Yes.
religious satire, very influenced by George Carlin, I guess. And one time at Mustache Pete's, a guy threw a glass at me.
Wow.
And it shattered against the back wall, and the room just went cold. And the guy immediately realized he'd done something just
Maybe
horrible
you shouldn't have done.
that. And he just like, okay, I'm leaving. They didn't even have to escort him out. He took himself out. But
All
it was-
these years,
Yeah.
I've never been at a show or been on stage and had anything thrown. The only time anybody ever threw anything at the stage, I was on stage with my guitar at Neptune's Pub, and the guys used to come up because there was no place else to go, like 1978. And Eddie Murphy was on stage, and somebody crumbled up a napkin and threw it at him. And I said to the guys, come on, we're getting out of here. And we left. And the owner was like, what are you doing? I said, nobody's throwing stuff at the comedians. And he hired us back for the next week for more money. But that, that's a very rare occurrence. Is that something you...
No, it's rare. I saw a glass.
But knock on wood, I hate to say
I
that.
saw a
this
glass
day and
thrown
age.
at Jerry Seinfeld at Catch a Rising Star.
Well,
one
why'd
time.
you throw it?
I didn't throw it. It's very, very rare.
And I finished my set. I mean,
He did. He
it's
finished
funny.
his
I got
set.
real calm about the whole thing, but yeah.
Wow.
But
And the
it was-
reason I think is because people get very emotional and take religion very personally, and that can happen. That kind of a thing can happen. But I'll never forget it. I saw the aftermath from under a table. Let's be honest. But he finished.
I think we
his-
knew that. Now I'm going to tell you how good my memory is.
Okay.
Probably because I worked with Bill so many damn times.
We worked in Florida together.
We worked in Florida, which is the health story will follow this. The trouble with nobody's ever written a book about the Fort Lauderdale comic strip because we all have ex-wives, girlfriends, and families, so nobody really wants to tell the tales. But I remember Bill's act so well. This is from his act, and he can tell me if I'm wrong. You know what I hate at Disney World? That damn It's a Small World ride. I hate it. Makes me want to kill somebody. It's a small world. It's a small world. And in Chinese, they sing it in every language. Chinese, it's a small world. It's a small world. And then in Italian, it's a small world. It's a small world. Polish, strangers in the night. Is that right?
I remember that joke. I remember that joke.
That is it indeed. I think now it's actually in the realm of politically incorrect.
Is that still there, do you think?
The It's a Small World?
No,
ride?
I mean in your act.
In your-
No, do you think the ride is still there?
I think the ride is.
Oh, the ride is still there,
Probably.
definitely.
Oh God!
Although I did read that they're going to revamp the thing, that they're actually taking it out. It's been there. I was on.
Oh,
it
yeah,
when it
they're
was-
not going to change it to like It's a Crap World.
I don't know what they're going to do, but it's an artificial intelligence world. But I remember going on that in the 1964 World's Fair. I mean, I knew it from
Right.
when I was
Right.
Wow.
Very, very young. But one of my favorite memories from the road. You and I worked in Fort Lauderdale, and by the way, no one's written a book about Lauderdale, but I actually wrote a play called Hell
Gig.
that is set in the condo at Lauderdale.
It's
not
about
in the
time that got produced, don't you think?
I would love to see it produced.
We're gonna do it right here.
I came so close to a production at one
Is
point.
it a one room?
It's a one set.
We'll do it right
You
here.
could practically
The
do it
condo
Look for it.
at Fort
The condo in
Lauderdale, for the
Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale comic strip, which was a club in the heyday of stand-up comedy in the early 80s, where comics went to misbehave. What is it with young comedians on the road behaving horribly?
They're
When you
young
look-
guys with lots of adrenaline and lots of testosterone put in a position where it's easy to meet women. That's not a hard. The math is quite simple.
But I mean, you'd show up, and the first thing you go, oh well, the patio furniture is at the bottom of the pool. You know, and they'd say, well, of course, because Michael Hampton, Kane, and Schiff were here last week, so they had to take home movies at the bottom of the pool.
A couple of comedians.
I think we've told the story. I've told the story in the air. But the reason it's called a comedy condo is because when Richie Tinkin, who owned both comic strips in Fort Lauderdale and New York City, when he first opened the comic strip in Fort Lauderdale, he rented a condominium for the comics. And within a couple of weeks, they were so loud and noisy and obnoxious, they got thrown out of the condo. So he had to actually buy an actual duplex house, and half
Yeah.
was for him and the other owners, and the other half, it wasn't a condo, it was half of a house, but the name Comedy Condo. And then it became, if you stayed at the waitress's house in Richmond, that was the Comedy Condo, which I think is so interesting.
Now, what was the name of your play?
Hell Gig.
I think it could have been titled Debauchery. I mean, what were we thinking?
No rules.
No rules.
And it was an odd thing writing it. It took, I don't know however many months it took, but it was that classic thing if you start writing something and then the characters took over, and the main character wound up being very much. I started it with 3 guys, and then at some point I thought, what if one of these guys was a woman? And then the woman became Abby Stein.
Abby Stein, the late Abby Stein,
and it was an
terrific
homage
comedian.
to her, sort of. It wasn't exactly her. She sort of, I put a bunch of things.
Well,
in.
Right,
Abby
everything
could
is like-
party with the big boys, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And
But,
she was so nice and so wonderful.
So the worst story about our dear friend William McCarty. We were all pretty crazy, and we were all doing pretty well. But McCarty was not having a fiesta with the ladies. He just wasn't. And we had a bunch of people over the house, of course, one night, and this very, very wild
hear
girl, I won't mention her by name, but anybody that ever was in Fort Lauderdale at the comic strip knows who I'm talking about. She was there with one of her girlfriends, who were all partiers, I guess is a fun word. And I said, I got to help McCarty. And I said, come on, Bill. And I pushed Bill and this girl into the end bedroom and closed the door. And then I fooled around with her girlfriend. And about a half an hour later, Bill comes out of the room, and I'm feeling so proud of myself because I did him a solid. I did him a solid. And the girls, thank you, girls. These are girls that they would run out of the place sometimes because the girl's older brother was a mobster, and they were driving up and down the street looking for her car because they were going to shoot that place. The stories are not believable.
This
So
is
they
growing
leave.
every time I hear it.
They leave, and I said to Bill, well, thank God, we got you some action. And he says, I didn't get near her. I said, come on, what? And he said, no, all she did was sit there and tell me how she had, however we would want to say, performed the finest of favors on over 2,000 guys. and I didn't get near. And I said to him, Bill, why didn't you just hum the theme song to 2001? And then he said, and I swear to God, he said, Jackie, I don't think if I walked out in the rain, I'd get wet. And I said, no, Bill, if you went out in the fog, you wouldn't get damp. And then we got drunk. Now, is that accurate?
2,000 guys.
That's what she said.
Those are Wilt Chamberlain numbers.
People would say
Those
she's
are-
bragging. I'm betting that it was 3,000 and she was trying to make herself look better. I know
Jackie,
I know you said that number because else I wouldn't have said the number I said.
You have told me this story before. Every time it grows in the telling. I'm sure there's a kernel of truth somewhere.
It can't. But the number 2,000 is the focal point of the story.
Well, I know. Yeah, and
But it was absolutely true, and we
But
had
you,
so
Bill,
much
you
fun. doing
not
it.
getting anything with this girl is totally believable for
But
those.
that is
for those of us.
truly believable. I'll tell you.
But other people would walk into the room and trip over something, and next thing you knew, she was on top of them. So it was like it was quite a feat. Congratulations.
How did you miss out on that?
He's Catholic.
We had
There you
fun.
go.
He
We
won't
had-
shake hands.
We had fun back in those days. We made wonderful memories. We were doing stand-up comedy. And I wonder about the young comics today. Do they behave the same way? Would somebody send me a message?
Yeah, there really is.
Let me know. I mean, what are younger comics now better behaved than we were?
Not only that, between politically correctness and Me Too and all that stuff, plus everything you read is that people aren't having sex anymore, which makes me nuts. That the kids that are 25 or 20 years old, they're just not interested. I'm like, what planet are they from?
I don't think that's true with all the young comics. I know a bunch that will do anything with anybody for a quarter.
Are there still the away, it's hard to remember, but when we were there, if the three of us were at the Fort Lauderdale comic strip together, there wasn't a headliner and a middle act. It was like
Rotated.
whoever went, and I usually went last only because I was loud and filthy, so it made no sense to go on after me. But that wasn't until years later that it became opening act, middle act, blah, 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 blah. And I don't know if the guys travel in, there was such a camaraderie, which is what led to our craziness. You know what I mean?
Yes, and we have that bond even to this day. Bill and I started at the comic strip. We used to go on stage after 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes.
We would go on very late.
Four people or even two people.
Yeah. And there was a thing, I know you teach a comedy class.
Yes, I do teach a comedy class. Thank you for bringing it up. Thank you, Jackie.
Why don't you tell them where it is?
StandUpUniversity.com.
I have a documentary called Joke Man.
All right. We have a guest.
I have a
He has a play.
Helgig, look for it.
you won't find
Tell
it.
them about your stupid thing. Tell us.
Oh,
No,
it's
but-
StandUpUniversity.com, a comedy class, 7 weeks at the Brokerage Comedy Club, Belmore, Long Island. Check us out. Thank you, Bill.
And it's free now, right?
It's not free.
It's not free.
I didn't know I was teeing you up.
You were
for
teeing me up.
For a promo pitch
You were
there.
teeing me up, but
he lives for that. And I live for him to get teed up.
But back in those days, the comic strip and other clubs like Catch a Rising Star and like the Improv, the original big three in New York City, were developing comedians after the schedule ran out and after most of the audience left. They would put people on as long as there were breathing
as long as
bodies.
There were people there. And New York was very much a 24-hour town then. New York is really not quite like, I don't think the clubs go.
No, they don't.
When
as
you
late
left
as
there,
they used
it's
to.
not like the night was over. That was stage one.
And people would blow into the comic strip at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
It was a different time. Everything's early. Everything shuts down early.
And the Catch a Rising Star on the weekends when it was still crowded and it was late, they used to send up Gilbert to clear the place out
clear the
Right.
place
because he was so outrageous. And
Gilbert Gottfried.
Nobody knew what planet he passed away, but he was the funniest guy in the world. But he was from Pluto.
He was the
especially back
funniest
then.
person in the world to people who got him. A good portion of the audience
Had
didn't
no
get-
idea.
had
And
no
they,
idea.
But when Gilbert went on, the rest of the comics would go in the room to watch him because he'd always, Gilbert could have gone on at any time he wanted, prime time, whatever he wanted. He could have gone at 10 o'clock, 10:30, whatever. Gilbert wanted to go on at 2 in the morning for Buddy Mantilla sitting
Yes.
in the
Right.
room, and the rest
And
of
the
us.
other comics.
Yeah.
Crazy
and he
day.
was wonderful. And you know, God
How
love
do you
him.
look back at starting out? You're young. It's like 1980. I was there, you were there, others were there, going on at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Well, when I really started, I guess in 77 or 78, I was just, by the time I met you, you know, I'd passed at the comic strip. Jerry Seinfeld had invited me to come and hang out and be a comic. But for the first 6 months to a year, I could not buy a laugh on stage. I was in a state of utter panic. I
Don't
had
don't
no
you look
idea
back?
what I was
I know I
doing.
look back. How did we even have the balls to go up there?
I don't know. It's
You
a
know,
mystery to me because
I guess I got scared Saturday night.
But you were in a band. I mean, you had that thing to fall back on. You had that experience.
But that is such a different world to
Of course
play the
it is.
guitar. And plus, you know, we told jokes, but I had a partner. So if I'm eating it, you turn your head, and the whole focus goes to somebody else. When it's just you, there's no turning your head. You know.
And I don't know how I think at a certain point I just got very stubborn about it. But I know at the point that I had been doing it about 6 months, and just because I had no idea how to write or frame or tell, you know, a joke. And when I say joke, I mean the kind of thing that Carlin did or Klein did or Richard
That would
Pryor.
culminate in a laugh.
Right. And I didn't relate to what they were doing as being jokes, even though they were. And I learned how to write. And honest to God, I'd pulled a number. You know, you'd pull a number on whatever day, Friday, for a Monday at the Strip. And I had this number for the Friday, and I said, well, this is it. If I don't, you know, get somewhere tonight, I'm done. I've been doing this for 6 months. I'm terrible at it. And I went up and I did my thing, and it was a bit about, I think it was a bit like the first bit I had that worked about updating plots from Leave It to Beaver, you know, from the 50s to the 70s, and I had a TV guide that I'd use as a prop and everything. And
You can all Google Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah, really. And I think everybody knows what Leave It to Beaver was.
I
And I finished.
We like to think they do. Go ahead.
I finished the thing, and Jerry Seinfeld, who was hosting, said, "So you want to come hang out and learn to be a comic?" And I was, "Yes, I do."
Oh, that's so
And
great.
I mean, it was like a lifeline at the point that
You
I
were
was
probably about a
ready to
year
throw it.
before me, I think, at least.
I was a little bit before you.
Yeah,
I
Seinfeld said
was-
the same thing to me.
Yeah.
But
Now-
the solace was you weren't the only. There was a lot of people starting out that were
Yes,
so fledgling.
comrades in arms is what we were.
Yeah.
And Bill said to me one time, you know, I don't know if I can take this anymore. I don't see what value I'm getting out of going up before two people at 2 o'clock in the morning. What did I say? What was
And I remember this very clearly. You said, and it was really smart. You said you're not doing this to learn how to be funny. You're learning how to bomb gracefully.
and there's a certain truth to that.
Yeah. And then I learned how to bomb.
Plus,
very
he was
goddamn
jealous because
gracefully.
he wasn't used to having anybody in the audience. So you had two people. So
Sometimes I would get 4 or 6, and it would be a huge crowd.
But,
Yes.
but yeah, the beginnings of this for us were very. But that's the thing. You were talking about the bringers. I mean, if I had to bring friends to see me, I'd have run out of friends after the first night.
Impossible.
And nobody would have sat around to watch me develop. And
I
figure
don't
out what I
like
was
doing my show with friends and family in the audience now. And I'm killing people. I don't want to forget about, you know, a million years when governors first started, my aunts were in their 80s, and my cousin brought my 2 80-year-old aunts. And I can still remember how horrified I was, and I don't think they understood a word I said, but
You
know.
guys do realize there's something worse than bringer shows, which is actually paying money to go up on stage. $5 or $10, whatever it is.
And
You're
That
making
does-
a joke.
No, I'm not making a joke. That
That's-
actually exists.
What do you do, tip the doorman?
No, you give it to the producer of the show.
But this is really the closing of a circle for me, you know, because I started with you working for nothing. in the 70s, and here I am in my 60s with you. I'm still working for nothing. So
But you are going to get
the circle game, as
a
Joni Mitchell
stand-up
says.
memories mug.
Oh, yeah. Well,
But let me end with this.
Courtesy of Gene Rayburn.
Gene Rayburn from the Match Game, to our younger viewers and listeners, an old reference. But Jackie himself is an old reference.
I have nothing for that.
Okay, now,
We are thrilled that you made the trip out
I-
here
I-
came
from
out for
Syosset.
it.
we love you. You are a
We've only
terrific.
gotten to the 70s.
You are so funny. And would you trade it for anything? With all of the challenges we had, with all of the 2 people at 2:15 in the morning, with all of the bombing, what about all the good stuff? Would you trade it for anything?
No, I met my wife doing stand-up, and Patricia and I have been together. You met Patricia. We went to Gabe Abelson's wedding together.
Many moons ago.
And I met her working at a club, and it gave me a level of confidence. You know, as we were talking earlier, I worked in voiceovers and commercials, and I've done some theater acting, and you know, it gave me a level of confidence and stuff that in doing things. that
Plus,
wouldn't
I don't
have
know
had
about you, I
otherwise.
can't imagine doing anything else rather than, you know, stand-up or theater or movies, however, whatever it is. I call it facing the wrong way. You know, those people are looking at us and we're facing the wrong
Facing
way.
the wrong way. Now,
good.
the
Tell
message-
McCarty he's got to come back.
Please come back to
I would
our,
love to.
our podcast.
We can do the 80s
The
next
message here is, those of you watching and listening, if you're thinking about going into stand-up comedy, you won't regret it. Will it be easy? No. But you won't regret it, right?
Yeah, I don't.
I don't either.
Easy, no. Rewarding, yes.
Great way to end
It's
the
like
show.
sex and pizza. When it's bad, it's good.
All right. Well, we had a great way to end the show, and then there's that. But the
You
point
know,
is,
you know,
Bill McCarty,
at
terrific
least he
comedian.
didn't ask you about, do you dye your hair?
Right. Thank
Do you
you.
believe he dyes it that
I
color?
don't diet.
I am not sure that Pete Bales is not actually Rick Steves, but that's a whole other story.
okay.
I'm
That's,
sure
that's
you've heard
another
that.
story. I
Yeah.
haven't been told that. All right, we're going to complete our show thanking Bill McCarty, terrific,
Thank you, gentlemen.
Old
terrific comedian.
friends. Old friends.
Jackie the Joke Man Martling, who remembers Bill from President McKinley's time in office.
Now, is that insulting me or is that insulting McCartney?
It's insulting McKinley.
McKinley, not McCarty, not Paul McCartney. And
You babysat McKinley.
I did. This has been Stand Up Memories.
See, I pulled that back.
What a fun show, and we will see you next time.